I personally am a pretty big fan of the Conjuring franchise. I have every single DVD. I really enjoy them. They're a guilty pleasure of mine that I enjoy, and I saw that there is a new movie coming out 5th of September. I saw a trailer for this about a month ago, 2 months ago, somewhere between a month and 2 months ago, pretty much when it first initially came out, and I thought, I want to watch that. Does it look great? Not really. Am I going to go watch it and am I going to buy the DVD of it? Almost definitely. But I thought, I've got all the movies, and I thought, well, surely I need to watch them all to see how this one will hold up, how this one will fit in the storyline of the Conjuring franchise. So, why not watch every single Conjuring movie that already exists and then rank them from worst to best? And then, when the new one comes out, I can then put that one in, nicely slot it in somewhere, and I will watch every single one of these movies. So, I realised, after recording all of everything, that I never actually explained how I was going to put them in order. So this is me just coming in really quickly to explain how I'm going to order it all. The way that I'm going to be doing it is there are going to be 4 categories, however 3 of them will be a thing. It will be out of 30 in total, and I'll rank it out of 30. So every one individual will be a 3, however I'll explain the 4th category when we get round to it. The first category will be the storyline. How good was the storyline? Was it easy to follow? Was it not easy to follow? Was it unique? All of that good stuff, regardless of how scary or anything it would just be the generic storyline. The second category will be the accuracy of the story being told. Obviously, these films were inspired by the real-life Ed and Lorraine Warren and their experiences as paranormal investigators. Obviously, when the first Conjuring movies came out, it was based on the real-life case of that family. So I will be looking at the accuracy that each of the films have throughout, and I'll be ranking that out of 10 of how accurate it was to the story, because all of the movies have elements of truth to them, so I'll be ranking them out of 10. The last 2 categories, so we're going to have a scare factor. How scary was the movie? Because you can have a good movie and you can have a good horror movie. You can have a horror movie that's not necessarily a good horror movie. So I will be tallying every single time that I get scared, and that will technically be every single time, even if it goes over 10. The way that I'll then counter this and make it out of 10 is I will then have a stupid count, which is basically every time that something happens that is deemed to be a jump scare, but I look at it and I think, that wasn't very good a jump scare, that just looked a bit stupid. I will then tally that, whatever that number is, I will then minus from the scare one, making it a total of out of 10. If it's over 10, I will just rank it 10 out of 10. These are the 3 categories that I have. These are the 3 categories that will hopefully work and will give us a good idea of what order to put these horror films in. Now that I've said all of that, let's actually now get to the first movie and let us watch The Nun. The Nun is based on a fictional character. All of them fictional characters, apart from Maurice, who is, technically speaking, a real life person who did get possessed, and Ed and Lorraine Warren did end up exercising later on. But there's a lot of scares in it, jump scares, physical jump scares, and they make you jump. That's the intent of them. They do good at making you jump. They don't get creepy atmosphere though. And the whole premise of this movie is that the nun is trying to find the blood of Christ. That is the whole premise. And that she needs a vessel to find the blood of Christ, I think. I'm not gonna lie, I don't quite know what the storyline of this movie is. I just know that there's a bad nun and a good nun and then Maurice. This movie made me question my life decisions, especially with some of the visual effects. I don't know why films need to have so much visual effect. Why can't you have the subtlety of not seeing the big bad character? What's wrong with that? What's wrong with not seeing the big bad character? You don't need to see the big bad character for it to be a good horror movie. Unless the fear is seeing the big bad character. The fear is seeing the big bad character. The Grudge, the fear, seeing the big bad character. The Ring, same thing. The Conjuring movies is about paranormal activity. We shouldn't see the monster because that gets rid of the horror element. Does it not? Anyway, the whole scene of the nun on water is comical. The up-close shots of her is so comical. The fact that Maurice then ends up getting possessed doesn't make sense because they defeated the nun. So why is she able to possess him? It doesn't make sense, and I am so sad that I wasted so much of my time watching this movie. Thankfully, it's only 93 minutes long, so it was possibly... No, it's not the longest hour-and-a-half movie I've watched. I've certainly watched worse, but that doesn't necessarily mean that this was good. Having said that, I will say it does have a couple of good elements in it. So there's one element in it that sticks with me even after I've watched it, and I'd forgotten, to be honest, that it was this film. And that is the idea of being buried alive and then you ring a bell up on the land and they will hear you that you have been buried alive. I quite like that. That's quite fun, and the fact that then the priest ends up getting buried alive and then the good nun has to dig him out. Another part that is good is there is a bit where she is looking. Where is it? She is, I think she's looking in a mirror, and then you see this nun and it like goes behind her and it disappears. Like the way that they've recorded it, it just disappears. And then it's all like in one shot, so it pans, disappeared, pans, window, none, floop. It's quite a cool scene, I'm not gonna lie. For story, I gave it a 5 out of 10. Accuracy, I've given it a 1 because the character of Maurice is technically a real life human that was possessed, and Ed and Lorraine Warren did end up exorcising. The scare factor, it scared me 6 times. I was spooked 6 times. However, having said that, I found 7 parts in it stupid, which technically gives it a -1. However, because there are certainly elements, like I don't watch this film and I think, oh goodness, I could show a child this. Obviously not. I would probably give it a 1 because there are some horror elements in. I just personally think that the stupidness of the scares outweighs the actual genuine scares. Therefore, it is a 1. This is the great way to start off this video, isn't it? Is how terrible a movie is. No, with all that being said, let us get into Annabelle Creation. Doesn't make sense, this origin story, I don't think, with a couple of the plot lines of Annabelle and how Annabelle the doll is possessed. Annabelle creation has some pretty good jumps in it, some pretty good tense scenes in it. The very first scene is a family who are fixing their car, and the little girl gets hit by the car that's coming down, and it's done. It, like, you know what's going to happen. You just do, even if you watch it for the first time. You know that child's probably going to get hit by the car, the way that it's all set up. However, that doesn't make it any less impactful when it does actually happen. It's still sudden, almost, even though you know what's going to happen. The room that they go into, and there's a bit where you see this figure walking towards her, and it's got a sheet over it, and the sheet slowly gets pulled off until it just turns out to be nothing. There are a couple of very good small moments like that in this story. However, there are also a couple of moments that make you go, really? Why did you put that in here? Two of those moments being when the little girl turns into a literal demon. I personally think that those are really stupid moments, and I don't quite understand them. There's also a moment where the dad is holding a cross up to the Annabelle doll and is like, "Get out, demon, you are not welcome here," and all of that stuff. And his fingers start comically breaking backwards as he's holding this cross, and I don't quite know how he's holding the cross when his fingers are broken backwards. It's very gory. Arguably, I think it's possibly the most goriest one. And I think that the gore is too much. It's about ghosts, it's about spirits. Why is it gory? It shouldn't be a gory movie. The story, I have given a 7. For some reason I forgot to say what the actual number was for the accuracy, so accuracy came to 1.5 for various little nods to the true story of Annabelle, however not anything being directly to do with how Annabelle was actually created. On the scare factor, it got me a few times. I've got it down for 14 times. It is the second most scary story, and you're going to have to carry on watching to find out which one the most is. However, having said that, I did put it down as a 6 for stupid. So that would then be an 8 out of 10 for scare factor, which, yeah, kind of sums it up. Yeah, so that is Annabelle creation. So let's get on to the next movie, shall we? Which is The Nun 2. The Nun 2. The Nun 2. Right, what can we say about The Nun 2? There is technically a storyline. Technically speaking, there's a storyline, okay? However, it's the exact same storyline from the first movie. And I have my issues with the first movie's storyline. The idea of an entity trying to get a religious artifact to take over the world is fine. If it's not an item that can deteriorate with age, but The Nun 2 is a pair of eyeballs. Now, they're just buried in this convent, and I don't understand how they wouldn't have rotted away. Characters in this movie have virtually no sense of danger at all. There's bits where they're hiding from, I think, the literal devil, and they're hiding in a room and they're just kind of ducked down under a window that's like this, and there's just a door open, and I don't understand how the devil doesn't see them. Is it scary? No. It made me jump. It did make me jump. It made me jump probably, I think I counted it about 6 times. It made me jump, technically speaking. But is it scary? No. Yeah, it bugs me that they've just taken the idea of the first one and made a second movie. I don't know why they've done that. I don't know why they couldn't have a different story. Why couldn't they make a different story? Why does it have to be the exact same characters in the exact same plot? I will give it justice. There are a couple of scenes that are cool in it. However, again, they're the scenes you see in the trailer. If you've watched the trailer, you have seen the coolest parts of that movie. I have given it a 4 out of 10 for the story. Accuracy, where Maurice is a real life person, so although The Nun is a completely fictional story, Maurice is an actual person that Ed and Lorraine Warren did exercise in their career, so I have given it a point for it. For the scariness, I recorded that it had scared me 6 times. I have also marked down the stupid factor of 5. So minusing that from the scare, it's a 1. It's 1 out of 10 for scariness. Now that that film has been talked about, let's move on to the next one, shall we? Let's watch Annabelle. Annabelle is a very good movie. I thoroughly enjoy it. Initially, when Annabelle came out, I assumed it would be about the real case of Annabelle, the doll. And it would be about the 2 nurses and their story. At the beginning of this movie, we see 2 nurses having the problems of Annabelle, the doll, who is tormenting them and their daily lives. Now, the story of them is true. There's documentations and stuff about it, and what they have said is deemed to be truth of a doll tormenting them under paranormal pretenses. Now, Annabelle, the movie, isn't about them. So it's about this woman, this pregnant lady, who gets gifted this doll by her husband, and then some cultists come in and they end up trying to murder the wife and husband. However, they get taken down by police, and the spirit of the woman ends up going into the doll, which doesn't make sense because Annabelle creation already has the doll being haunted by the daughter who died. But it hurts my brain, and again, this is why I think they should stick to real life cases and the real life story, because it doesn't chronologically make sense. Because in Annabelle creation, they have this doll that is possessed by the lost child of the couple who presumably made this doll. But then in this one of the children is all grown up, and they hint to that. So was the doll ever possessed? Was she never possessed? Was the doll not anything to do with it? Was the doll possessed and then the spirit of Annabelle just kind of went into it with the demon that was already possessing it? It doesn't make sense at all. I don't know why they didn't go into more depth of the 2 nurses. Why didn't they look into the 2 nurses? Why didn't they tell their side of the story? Because that's a fascinating case. Why didn't they go into that? Why did they have this, which doesn't make any sense chronologically? Anyway, despite all of that, I think it's a very good movie. It has some scenes in it, still make me nervous. The whole her going to open the door and then the pushchair goes out onto the street and then the truck hits it, but the baby isn't in it. She's holding the baby, but the pushchair still gets hit. That sticks with me every time I watch that. I get chills because I know that everyone's going to be okay in it, but also it's so good. There's a couple of scenes in this that whenever I think of a good part of horror, I think of this movie. When she has the Annabelle doll and she gets frustrated because she can't find her child, so she whacks the Annabelle doll on the side of the pram and then throws it, and then it like does a cut to, turns out the doll was her baby, and then she runs over and then it's not her baby anymore. It then turns out to be another doll that laughs at her. It's so I just think it's great. Some of the horror in it is excellent. I was gonna give it a 7 because again it's generic ghost story. However, because it makes me so emotional every time I watch it, I decided to give it 8 just because it doesn't take a lot to make me cry, but how many times I've watched this film and how many times I've watched the other movies and they should have a similar effect on me, I think that this one deserves an 8. Accuracy though, it's not very accurate from my knowledge. It does have a callback to the nurses. It does say their side of the story and all of that. It does have an idea of who they are, but it's very brief, and then we go to a fictional story. However, having said that, at the end of the movie, they do then do a callback to it, and they have the mother of the nurses finding the doll in a charity shop and taking it back, which is how the real life nurses ended up actually coming into contact with it, is because the mother of one of the nurses ended up giving it to them as a birthday present. So I like that. They also have the real life Raggedy Ann doll of Annabelle in the background of the charity shop, which I quite like. I quite like that as like a callback. Completely forgot to say whilst recording, but I ended up giving this a 2.5 out of 10 for accuracy. On a scare factor, I gave it 11 because it gets me. There are a couple of moments in it where it's scary, it's spooky. So I gave it 11. Having said that, there are a couple of scenes in it that are a little bit stupid. I don't like seeing the devil again, it's too visual. So I then did a 3. Because of that, it is an 8 out of 10 on scariness. Now that we've got that one out the way, let's go to The Conjuring. It's not anything special. It's a haunted house horror film. It's not particularly got anything unique in it. It's not got any unique jump scares, but there's just something about it that just still is creepy. So I've watched this film goodness knows how many times by this point. I've watched this film a lot. And the hide and go clap scene still gets me. The fact that she's just in the basement and these hands appear and just clap, and then the wardrobe as well and the clapping, it gets me every time. It's a very simple movie. It's just about a family who are suffering from a paranormal entity that keeps scaring them, and the scares are really good. They're not like they're jump scares, they're typical jump scares, but they're not overly done. So I just think this is a really good film. It's got some great moments in. It's not groundbreaking horror. It's not terrifying to the core, but there's just elements of it that I feel like modern horror and the rest of this franchise missed, and that is the subtlety of the horror. You don't see things as often, and when you do, they are human. They are just humans. That is all you see. There isn't a big monster demon thing trying to kill you. They are just human ghosts. Having said that, there are a couple of moments that are kind of a bit over the top, I personally think. Seeing the witch. Seeing the witch is, every time you see her, it plays a dramatic effect, and she's good to be a villain, but I don't know why we're seeing her. I like seeing the ghosts of the humans, because they're not meant to be scary, but the witch is, and we see her so directly that I feel like it ruins the scariness when you realise that she herself is just human. She looks a bit strange, but she's human, and I don't like that. I don't like seeing her. We see her on top of the wardrobe. The mother turns into her. I do like the small detail of, there are a couple of moments I personally can't tell when it's the mother and when it's the witch. They do the makeup so well in this scene. It's difficult to tell, and I thoroughly enjoy that. But I also am aware that I struggle with recognising faces, so that might be part of it, and that kind of adds a nice extra little horror to it. I think I've made this clear possibly a couple of times in this franchise, or if not, I'm going to make it clear. I don't like exorcisms. I think they're stupid and over the top, and very dramatic for the sake of just being dramatic. And this film isn't... This film doesn't break away from that. The chair levitating, the chair going upside down and banging on the ceiling is stupid. And having said that, it is also one of possibly the best exorcisms that I've seen, because from my knowledge, everything that happens in the exorcism is meant to have happened in real life. So I will give it credit where credit is due. However, that doesn't stop it from being a bit stupid. And yes, if I was in the scenario of I saw someone levitating and they went upside down and started banging the chair feet onto the roof, I might be scared. But that doesn't scare me when I'm watching a horror film. I also don't like possession scenes. They're stupid and over the top. Why do you need to vomit in someone's mouth to possess them? Like, I'm not saying that it was necessarily a good film, but The Nun, where they literally don't show that he got possessed because they didn't throw up in his mouth. No, they just showed that he had a cross in him. That is fine. That's all I need to know, that he is possessed. Does it chronologically make sense? Absolutely not. It makes no sense whatsoever that he's possessed. But there isn't this big dramatic pan in of this monster on top of someone. They're screaming and then they vomit in their mouth. I don't want to see that. Just tell me the person's possessed. For the story aspect of this film, I've given it a 7, because at the end of the day, it's a generic haunted house story. Accuracy. Now, I've seen people say that it's not very accurate, but looking everything up and seeing names and things like that, I mean, yeah, they dramatise a lot of it. I have to give it a 9. I don't care what you say if you tell me that it's wrong and that it's really inaccurate. From what I can tell, it's pretty darn accurate. The scare factor I've put as a 13, so it's not the scariest one in this list. It's the 3rd scariest that I've got down. Having said that, the stupid factor, I think I said all the stupid things that I thought about the movie, and there were only 3 of them, which would mean this is the highest scary movie, with it coming in at 10, because it's 13 minus 3. So it's a 10. It's a 10 out of 10 for scariness. Next movie, Annabelle Comes Home. I thoroughly enjoy the idea that they play with this one of what is in the Warrens family home, of all of the haunted objects all having their own backstories and all of that, and what happens when you unleash all of that terror into one night. The scene, it's in the trailer, so it kind of does, it's going to be said, but it still has a good impact of when she gets asked, what did you touch? And she goes, everything. It's still, because you're like, oh no, you are in for a bad time. So the film itself is an hour and 40 minutes long, and the first hour and 20, I'd say, is really good. It's got some good jumps in it, it's got some good horror in it. I feel torn about how I feel about it, because there is a scene where she's trying to talk to her dad. So her dad is dead and she sees her dad in the mirror, and she turns to face him and he's all mangled. And I do enjoy it, but you still see a bit too much, because it's in your face for a little bit too long, I personally think. But there's like 5-10 minutes of just chaos where they're trying to get the spirits back in, and there's one scene in particular that I don't know why it's in the film, and that is the demon that we have seen, who is believed to be possessing the Annabelle doll. We see this demon one final time, okay, and this demon tries to suck out the soul of one of the girls, and it is so stupid. Because we just see so much demon. Why is there so much demon? What is the point? It's stupid, it's over the top. I don't want to see that much demon. The story, although it is a really good plot, I personally think that they could have done it a bit better. I really enjoy the idea of having these items that are haunted, that terrorise a family, but where it's based on Ed and Lorraine Warren, I really want it to have more based in reality. Because of this, I ended up giving the storyline a 6 out of 10. The accuracy, so I looked up all of the items that they make a big deal of. Some of the items are true as well, they just don't necessarily hold truth in what they're showing. The accuracy I put down as a 6. The scare factor, I gave it a 12. It's got some pretty good scares in. It's got pretty good jump scares. It's got some pretty good tense moments in it. Having said that, I put the stupid factor of 4. It gives it a total of 8 out of 10 for scariness. Next movie is La Llorona. Let's get to it. La Llorona. I don't quite know how this movie ties in with the Conjuring franchise, other than the fact that it shares the priest that's in the Annabelle films. It doesn't really make a lot of sense. It's still part of the franchise, which is why it's on this list. It's about a social worker who basically saves 2 kids from who she thinks is the threat of the mum, but it turns out the mum's trying to protect them from La Llorona. She then basically curses the social worker and says, oh, you're now going to get La Llorona to come and take your kids away, and hopefully they'll give me back my kids. Something about this movie that I find different about the other movies is that the whole premise of La Llorona, from what I understand, is that you see the weeping woman and your kids get taken or you die or whatever. So the premise in this movie is different to the other movies, because in the other movies it's been a paranormal entity, whereas this one, yes, it is a paranormal entity, but in a similar sense that I've talked to you about things like in It Follows, Grudge, the horror is seeing the big bad, and I feel like La Llorona, you should see it more. There's just something about seeing La Llorona that fills me with more dread than seeing the nun or the Annabelle demon. Seeing her face, no, don't do that. Seeing her face again ruins it. Why are we seeing her face? This movie is really good at building up a generic scare. So there's a couple of very tense scenes, like the bathtub scene. That whole scene, that beginning moments of it, is really good. Until you see her face plain as day behind the main woman, ruins it. It's not great. It's not the best. It's not bad. It's not the worst storyline. I think the idea of being hunted by a spirit is quite interesting. It's very quite generic storyline. It's not haunted house, but it's haunted people. So I've given it 7. Accuracy for La Llorona. I don't really know the story of La Llorona. I never grew up with it. I only know it based on reviews I've seen of this movie. From what I understand, this movie isn't overly accurate as to what La Llorona is, so because of this I ended up giving it a 3 for accuracy. The scareness I've given a 12. It certainly had some good moments in it. However, those moments were very much retaliated by the not so good moments, in the fact that I have given it a 7 on the stupid factor, meaning that it comes in at a 5 out of 10 for scariness. With that all being said, let's go on to the next movie, shall we? Let's watch The Conjuring 2, Enfield Haunting. The Conjuring 2, the story itself is obviously based on the Enfield Haunting. There is a lot of similarities to the real life case. Again, good. It's a ghost story. Family plagued by haunted things in their house. It is what it is. There's not anything unusual about that. However, when they then start deviating from the eyewitness accounts, it gets stupid. And there is no other way to describe it. There are bits in this movie where visually it's meant to be scary and it just isn't. I am not a fan of seeing the horror that is meant to be horroring. So the fact that we get a close-up of the crooked man, the fact that we get a close-up of the nun, to me, ruins it. Because why? What's the point? Why do we need a visual of the crooked man? The crooked man concept is good. It ties it into the rest of the Conjuring franchise. However, why do we need to see him and his stupid little beady eyes? What's the point? He's not scary when you see him and realise he's a CGI monster. The other thing that I have the problem with is like at the end where it's I know your name, and then she yells the name, and then the demon that is the nun turns into this weird stupid like mist thing and disintegrates in the corner. Why? It's a good movie. I like this movie. But there are so many elements in it that are so stupid. And I mean that with all the love. It's the only one that is over 2 hours. All the rest are about an hour and a half to an hour and 45. Personally think if they had cut out all of this stuff with the demon nun and the fact that the ghost that was terrorising them was being controlled by the demon, it would make a really good hour and a half movie about a true case of a haunted house. To be honest, that's the only part that I have a problem with, is the nun. The nun shouldn't exist, I don't think, in this world based on true life cases. The story, again, it's about a family that is being haunted by a ghost. It's not anything special, but it's a good storyline, hence why so many horror movies have that premise. So, I've given it a 7. I gave it an accuracy of 8 because the parts that actually are about the Enfield haunting are correct. From what I can tell, everything pretty much is accurate to what actually happened in real life. It is the one that scared me the most. I've marked off 16 times that it scared me. However, it then also got rid of the elements of scare 9 times. That then gives it a total of 7. Let us get to the last movie, which is The Conjuring 3, The Devil Made Me Do It. The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It is at the moment the last and final movie of the Conjuring franchise before The Last Rites comes out. This is, again, one story that is based on truth. It is about the real life murder trial case Arnie Cheyenne Johnson, I think his name is, ended up being put on trial for. I actually did a video about it a few years ago when this movie initially came out, which you can go and watch. I don't know which corner it's going to be in, so you can watch it here. You can watch it here. It is a very good movie. It starts off with an exorcism. I have said I'm not keen on exorcisms. I tend to think that they're over the top. I do think that there is something about this exorcism at the very beginning of the movie that is quite chilling. I quite like it. The movie is very good. The way that it's set up, all of the truth behind it, from the first half an hour of the movie is true. It is spooky in the sense of it is a horror movie and there are some fun bits in it. However, the whole premise of it is a witch who has cursed this family, there's no truth behind that, and it kind of bugs me that it's not just them trying to figure out whether or not he's murdered. I don't know why they've not gone more into them being possessed. Why couldn't they have gone more into them being possessed? Had an hour and a half movie where the first 45 minutes to an hour is him being possessed, and then the last half an hour is them on murder trial. I wish that they had stuck more with the actuality of what this case is, because I think that in itself is a good plot for a movie, and it kind of saddens me that they've not. Having said that, I did give it an 8 out of 10 for story, because the idea of someone being possessed by a demon to commit murder is quite a fun story. I've given it an accuracy of 6 because although it is true, however, that's only the first 20 minutes. 20 minutes, half an hour of this an hour and 45 minute long movie. I have given it quite a high scare factor. I've given it an 11. I did also think there's quite a lot of stupid parts in it. Unlike me, I know. No, there's just a couple of moments in it that I deemed unnecessary. So I marked it a 5 for the stupid factor. So 5 minus from 11 is 6. Now, I obviously haven't seen The Last Rites because that movie is not out yet. However, it comes out on this date, which I believe is the 5th of September, and editing me will tell me if I'm right or wrong in that. And let's get to the scoring of all of the movies now that I've reviewed them all, shall we? Let's go. Starting off in last place with 5 out of 30 is The Nun. I don't really know if that's a surprise to anyone. I feel like the answer is no, because you'll never guess what's in 8th place. You've guessed it. It's The Nun 2 with 6 points. Coming in 7th with 15 points is La Llorona. In 6th place with 16.5 points is Annabelle Creation. In 5th place we have Annabelle. That got 18.5. Coming in 4th and 3rd place, because they had the exact same amount, coming in with 20 points, is The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It, and Annabelle Comes Home. 2nd place is The Conjuring 2 Enfield Haunting. It had 22 points. Coming in first, the best movie, in my opinion, from the Conjuring franchise is The Conjuring. Are any of us surprised? Probably not, because it's a good movie, it's so iconic, and it's the reason that this franchise even exists in the first place. That one had 26 points, so obviously there is room for improvement, however only 4 points of room of improvement. I realise that my mic has been facing away from me this entire time. I do hope that you enjoyed this video. Please do like it if you did. It means that I know to make more videos like this, and that someone will probably enjoy it somewhat. If you enjoy horror media, then subscribe, because 50% of the time that's what I post about. It's the ranking of the Conjuring movies, from the worst all the way up to the best. Please do subscribe, and I hope that you've enjoyed this video. Bye!